Once upon a time, in a small coastal village nestled along the shores of the great blue ocean, there lived a community of humble fisherfolk. This tight-knit village, with its sun-kissed beaches and modest dwellings, had a special bond with the sea and its mystical inhabitants, the mermaids. For generations, the villagers and the mermaids had forged an unspoken pact, a sacred agreement to share the bountiful fishing grounds in harmony. The mermaids, with their ethereal beauty and enchanting voices, would guide the fishermen to the richest waters, ensuring bountiful catches. In return, the villagers pledged to respect the ocean's boundaries, never taking more than they needed, and honoring the delicate balance of nature. This harmonious coexistence was a treasured tradition, passed down from father to son, mother to daughter, like a precious heirloom. The elders taught the young ones to listen to the gentle whispers of the waves and to offer humble offerings to the mermaids, ensuring their continued goodwill and protection. One such elder was Baba Akin, a wizened fisherman whose eyes held the wisdom of 1,000 voyages. His wrinkled face was a tapestry of stories, each line etched by the salty sea breeze and the countless tales he had woven for the village children. It was Baba Akin who first learned the secrets of the mermaid's language, a melodious tongue that flowed like the ebb and flow of the tides. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in vibrant hues of orange and pink, Baba Akin gathered the children around the flickering fire. With his trusted fishing net draped over his shoulders, he began to spin a tale of the village's origins and the sacred bond with the mermaids. Long ago, when our ancestors first set foot on these shores, they were greeted by the haunting melodies of the mermaids. Baba Akin's voice carried across the crackling flames. These mystical beings, with tails that glimmered like diamonds and hair that flowed like seaweed, welcomed our people and shared the secrets of the ocean's abundance. The children leaned in, their eyes wide with wonder, as Baba Akin regaled them with tales of daring fishermen who braved the treacherous waves, guided by the mermaids' songs, and returned with nets overflowing with glistening catches. But the mermaids were not just protectors of the sea, Baba Akin continued. They were guardians of balance, ensuring that we took only what we needed and left the rest for the creatures of the deep. In return, they blessed our village with prosperity and kept us safe from the ocean's wrath. As the night grew deeper, the elders of the village would join the gathering, adding their own stories and wisdom to the tapestry of tales. They spoke of the mermaids' unwavering loyalty, how they had saved countless fishermen from storms and shipwrecks, and how their enchanting voices had lulled even the fiercest of waves into submission. It was on one such night that a young boy named Ayo, his eyes sparkling with curiosity, turned to Baba Akin and asked, "But what if someone breaks the pact? What if they take more than they should?" Baba Akin's expression grew somber and he leaned forward, the firelight dancing across his weather-beaten face. "Then, my child, the consequences would be grave. The mermaid's wrath is as fierce as the ocean itself, and their power is not to be trifled with. Those who disrespect the balance risk invoking their fury, and the seas would turn against us, swallowing our boats and our homes in a watery grave." The children fell silent, their innocent faces etched with awe and a newfound respect for the ancient pact that bound their village to the mermaids. For years, the balance remained undisturbed, and the village prospered under the watchful gaze of the mermaids. The fishermen brought home bountiful catches, the children played on the sun-kissed shores, and the elders passed down the traditions and stories, ensuring that the bond with the mystical beings of the sea remained strong. But as the world beyond their secluded cove evolved, a new threat emerged, one that threatened to shatter the delicate equilibrium they had so carefully maintained. It began with whispers carried on the ocean breeze, rumors of outsiders with greedy eyes and hearts driven by ambition. These were developers, men and women who saw the pristine coastline not as a sacred sanctuary, but as an opportunity for profit and progress. At first, the villagers paid little heed to the rumors, dismissing them as mere tall tales spun by sailors with too much sea salt in their veins. But soon, the signs became impossible to ignore. Strange ships prowling the waters, their hulls gleaming with the promise of modernity, and surveyors staking claims on the once-untouched beaches. Concern rippled through the village like a pebble dropped into a still pond. The elders convened, their faces etched with worry, as they discussed the potential threat to their way of life and the delicate balance they had maintained with the mermaids. It was Baba Akin who first sensed the mermaids' unease, their melodic voices carrying a note of distress that echoed through the waves. He knew, deep in his soul, that the developers' plans would not only disrupt the village's harmony, but also the very fabric of the ocean's ecosystem. With a heavy heart, Baba Akin gathered the villagers and shared his grave concerns. "The outsiders do not understand the sacred bond we share with the mermaids," he said, his voice trembling with emotion. "They seek to tame the very waters that have sustained us, to reshape the coastline for their own gain, and in doing so, they threaten to shatter the balance we have so carefully cultivated." The villagers listened, their expressions ranging from disbelief to outright fear. Some questioned the validity of the elders' concerns, while others clung to the hope that the developers would respect their traditions and the sanctity of the land. But as the days passed, the signs became increasingly ominous. Construction crews arrived, their machinery rumbling like thunder across the once peaceful shores. They began to clear swathes of land, uprooting ancient trees and leveling dunes that had stood for centuries. The mermaids' distress grew palpable, their haunting melodies carrying notes of sorrow and anger that reverberated through the very depths of the ocean. The fishermen returned with tales of choppy waters and schools of fish, fleeing the once bountiful fishing grounds. It was then that the village elders realized they could no longer stand idly by. They knew that if the developers succeeded in their plans, it would not only destroy their way of life, but also the delicate balance that had been forged with the mermaids over countless generations. In a bold move, the elders reached out to the mermaids, using the ancient language they had learned from Baba Akin and his predecessors. They pleaded for guidance, for a way to protect the sacred bond that had sustained their village for so long. At first, the mermaids' responses were guarded, their voices tinged with mistrust and wariness born of centuries of broken promises. But as the elders continued to speak, their words carrying the weight of sincerity and desperation, the mermaids began to soften. It was then that a plan began to take shape, an alliance forged between the villagers and the mystical beings of the sea. The mermaids, with their enchanting voices and deep connection to the ocean's currents, would use their powers to disrupt the developers' operations. They would summon storms and treacherous waves, making it impossible for the construction crews to continue their work. In return, the villagers pledged to stand as guardians of the coastline, protecting the beaches and the delicate ecosystem that had sustained them for generations. They would form a human shield, peacefully but resolutely resisting the developers' efforts to encroach on their sacred lands. And so, the battle began. A clash between the forces of greed and progress, and the ancient bond that had bound the village to the mermaids for ages. The developers, undeterred by the villagers' protests, brought in larger machinery and more workers, determined to tame the wild coastline and reshape it to their desires. But as their efforts intensified, so too did the mermaids' retaliation. Storms raged with unprecedented fury, whipping the waves into frenzied peaks that battered the construction sites and sent workers fleeing for safety. Currents shifted unpredictably, sweeping away expensive equipment and leaving the developers bewildered and frustrated. Yet, through it all, the villagers stood firm, their resolve strengthened by the knowledge that they were fighting not just for their own survival, but for the preservation of a sacred bond that had sustained them for generations. Days turned into weeks, and weeks into months as the battle raged on. The developers, their resources dwindling and their patience wearing thin, began to question the feasibility of their ambitious plans. It was during one particularly fierce storm, when the mermaids' voices echoed like 1,000 thunderclaps across the raging seas, that the developers finally conceded defeat. Their machinery lay battered and broken, their hopes for profit and progress shattered by the relentless forces of nature and the unwavering determination of the villagers. As the storm subsided and the sun peeked through the parting clouds, the villagers emerged from their homes, their faces etched with a mixture of relief and triumph. They gathered on the shores, their voices raised in jubilant celebration as they offered humble offerings and songs of gratitude to the mermaids. And from the depths of the ocean, the mermaids' melodies rose in response, a haunting yet joyous chorus that carried the promise of a renewed bond. A bond that would endure for generations to come. A testament to the power of unity and the indomitable spirit of a small, isolated coastal village. As the sun set over the now peaceful shores, Baba Akin gathered the children once more, his eyes shining with pride and a newfound sense of reverence. He looked out over the tranquil waters, where the mermaids' tails could be seen glimmering like diamonds, and began to weave a new tale, a tale of courage, perseverance, and the unbreakable bond between the villagers and the mystical guardians of the sea. And as the night deepened, the villagers slept soundly, secure in the knowledge that their way of life, their traditions, and their sacred pact with the mermaids had been preserved, a shining beacon of harmony in a world that so often forgot the importance of balance and respect for the natural world. For in this small, isolated coastal village, the mermaids' enchanting melodies would continue to guide the fishermen. The children would grow up learning the ancient stories, and the balance would be maintained, a delicate dance between land and sea, human and mythical, that would endure for ages to come. That's it for this video, folks. Be sure to subscribe to our channel Pick Tales for more stories like this one. Leave a comment letting us know what stories you'd like to see come to life. Don't forget to like and subscribe for new African tales and fables every week.